I'm back. My name is Dana Brown, Master Land Investing University. But today's lesson is going to be on having a solid exit strategy. It's very important. We went over the ABCs in the last course. So basically, you already know the value of the deal. You've determined that. You've already done your due diligence, so you know what it can and can't be used for. So at this point, you have a property. This particular property, for example, is a 10-acre piece of property. It's a farmland property. It's in a farming area. It's in the country. The biggest town's about 45 minutes away. You have a small community about 15 miles away. Knowing if having a solid exit strategy is so important, because if you don't, and you're only working with so much cash, or you have an investor's money, they want their money back, and you want to be able to keep making deals so you can get your money in pocket and stack your money up, make more money, make more money, make more money, make the right deals, and this way you stay in business. That's so important, because if you really don't have a solid strategy, then what happens is a lot of investors get going, they're excited, they start putting contracts on property, they really haven't done the due diligence, really haven't determined the true value of the property, and most important, they really don't have a solid exit strategy. Things change all the time. Every day that goes by, you have a carrying cost. If it goes a year, you have a year's tax due on that property. So you don't want to get yourself in that situation unless you're buying long term, and that's your strategy. You're buying the property, you're going to tuck it in your pocket, waiting for future growth. You're waiting for that town that's 45 minutes away to catch up with you, push the value up. Typically, if a property's that far away from a big town, you're probably a little too far to speculate on that radius. It's going to take too long. You won't live long enough to get your money back. You got to look at it a couple of different ways. Now you have 10 acres farmland on a fairly busy road in the country. Most of the properties around you are farming. So I would expect it's a short-term investment. You're going to try to get out as quick as you can. So if you took that property, put it with a realtor, put it on Zillow, chances are it's not going to move that quick. So now here's where you got to get creative. And we mentioned that in the first course in the ABCs of landing investing. So being creative means when you did your due diligence and you had a pretty well thought out exit plan, you had a good idea how you were going to put that property in the right buyer's zone so that you don't have to wait for him, you go find him. The way I would do it, first of all, you got some traffic on the road, so you go ahead and plop a sign for sale by owner, terms possible, with a big marker, put your phone number. This way you're getting some traffic that's going by, might even be a farmer that's interested in a little more property. Another thing you can do, there's a town about 15 minutes away. I would go right to that town, find every little store, diner, whatever I could, see if I could just put a little sign, little posting for free on a little bulletin board that specifies what you have. Beautiful parcel, 10 acres, main road, 45 minutes from the city, 15 minutes from town, great potential. Now this particular property, you can have farming, you can put livestock, you could have a farmer's market. So that's got a lot of opportunities right away. So you could always mention on that little posting, or even the community paper that you're going to run an ad in, all those wonderful possibilities. Looking for the perfect buyer. This property could be yours tomorrow. Owner willing to sell on terms, meaning you'll sell it on financing. Because you bought right, you can probably get some money back, put some in your pocket, and go to the next deal and collect passive income over time. 5, 10, 15, 20 years, depends on what you want to do. That being said, now you got that big city 45 miles away. I'd go ahead and get a hold of somebody in advertising about 45 miles away, and I'd try to target somebody that's in that area also. Think about the potential. Have your own farmer's market running on the weekend, get out of the city, buy the property, make money today, hold it for years, big return later. That's a possibility. So you have some people 45 minutes away that there's a big population. You can get it in front of a lot of eyeballs fairly cheap. But most important when you're doing these deals is the exit strategy, because if you buy a couple deals, you're light on cash, or you went and got an investor group together and you're using their money also, most of the time investor groups, they get a little finicky about their money. Once it's out a while, they really don't know you that well. You've sold them on something, and now that they're not seeing their money, they're going to get a little itchy. They're going to want their money back. So it's so important to have that strategy. But when you do, and you know how to market, and you go back to what we said, getting creative on every deal, you got to get creative as you are finding the sellers, as you are finding the buyers. A lot of guys get into the business and they think they're going to buy the property, buy it right. So they go in, they know the value of the property, they know how to negotiate with the seller, they get what they want, they get it on good terms, they get a deal on the property. But just as important is how to get out of the property, because if you haven't got money, you don't have anything. Now you're sitting dead in the water and you can't go on to the next deal and put more money in your pocket. There's many factors in that having a solid exit. You got to look at each property individually. You can't be hasty, can't be anxious because you can buy right. I mean, buying right is one thing, and you get the value. You've done a value analysis on the property. You know it's worth 100 grand. The seller's motivated. They want to get out. They're tired of farming, whatever it may be, and you get the property for 60 grand. What happens is you get it for 60 and you didn't have a solid exit strategy. Now that 60 can start eating up your profits. Every year that goes by, that property's sitting there. You may have to mow it. There may be zoning where they say that property can't grow too high if it isn't farmed. I'm always going to emphasize that as a smart investor. If you go through our course, one thing you're going to learn and you're going to hear me emphasize is make sure you have a solid exit. Let's get back to that 10 acres for a minute. You have the property, so you're going to run an ad 45 miles away in the city. You're going to target all them needs. You're going to put all the possibilities in front of these people who ever read that paper. And knowing who you're targeting is key. So you're going to have advertised possible hemp farm. Do you ever dream of having property in the country? Move away from the city when you retire. Unlimited potential. Possible owner financing. There's all kinds of things you can put in these ads to get the person stimulated, get them out there. And always, for me, what works well is always including possible owner financing. Because when you do that, a lot of times you can get more money on the back end on terms. And even better, you run an ad, owner financing, no credit. This way, you're in control of the deal. And that's the key. Always being in control of every deal is vital. For instance, if the prime rate is 6%, today it's just about 4%. So I just struck a couple deals the other day. I have some property. I'm trying to lighten up some cash. I have 3 vacant lots. I think the market right now is about, I'd say $10,000 to $12,000. So I called my realtor today. I said, listen, Sean, I need you to move these properties, but you got to hear what I got to say. If you can't do it, I'll find another way. But here's what I want you to do. They're listed at 10.9. There's 3 of them I have right now in this one area in Florida. I said I want to put them at 16.9. And I want to sell them at 20% down. Make sure in big bold letters when you put these listing out in the MLS, owner financing, no credit needed. So we're going to sell them at 16.9, 20% down for 5 years. So typically the way that works is I think I bought these properties around 10. I didn't buy them at the right price. My time was off a little bit. I was distracted. I liked the area, so I just bought a few. So now I need to make some money to get the egg off my face. So I'm going to turn around and let him sell them at 16.9. He loved the idea. He told me he loves owner finance deals. I've done some deals with him before, so he liked what I had for a strategy. So listen to the numbers now. So I'll take that property. I'll sell 3 of them. Let's do one deal. I give it to him at 16.9, 20% down, 5-year term. He's going to get a $1,000 commission on that. So what I told him is I need to have my own. And the reason for having my own title company is I got to control the deal. I need to put in that deal deed in lieu of foreclosure when they receive mortgage papers, which means is if that property goes south and they decide not to pay, it's really not profitable for me to go ahead and hire a lawyer and go through the whole foreclosure proceeding because it's going to eat into my cash. It's going to tie up the property. I can't sell it to a potential motivated buyer because now I'm tied up in foreclosed. So the way I do it is always use my own title company, owner financing. This way I can put in what I need to put in. I can structure the terms and always in the seller's favor, which is yourself. So let me just do a quick numbers game with you. Sell it for 16.9. I'm going to get 20% down. I think it's somewhere around $4,000 down. I'm going to give him $1,000 on the sale of the property for his commission. So it gives me $3,000 back. I'm going to sell it over the period of 5 years to them. They have to put in $4,000 down. They're going to have a balance of about $13,000, $13,200, $13,500. Over the course of 5 years, they're going to end up paying a total of about $22,000 for that property. Now, there's a property that was on the market at 10.9. It's really not moving. I'd have to move it down to about $9,000 to sell it. Got to give $1,000 to the broker. I'm losing quite a bit more than I planned on that deal. So I just listed 3 like that. And that's just another great exit strategy. I knew I could do it. I just didn't want to do it. I was kind of waiting to see if the market changed. I wanted to show my students an example of how you can increase your long-term profit and it becomes passive income. So I have another network of people. What I'll do in this particular scenario is I'll take that property, sell it at $16,900, 20% down, 5-year term. So let's just do a round the numbers off simple. I get $4,000 deposit. I give him $1,000. I have $3,000 left. I'm going to pay all closing because I'm controlling the deal. So if the buyer gets to choose title, but in this particular sale, I'm going to go ahead and control title because it's my title company. So to sweeten the deal, I'll pay closing, which will cost about $600 in that deal. So I'm out $1,600, leaves me about $2,500 in cash back to me at closing. So now I'm down around $6,000. I'm out. But that's not too bad for me. I really don't need the money. I want money over time. I want to create that passive income. So for 5 years, that'll be approximately $300, just over $300 a month. So that's what, $3,600 a year. It ends up being, I'll recover on that property about $18,000 over the 5 years. That's one way to have a good solid exit strategy. Everything wasn't the way you planned. The market didn't get as stimulated as you thought it would. It wasn't moving quite as quick as you thought it would. But you had that tool in your box, and you know if you had to, that you could sell it on terms. And mark my words when I teach you this, I had a scenario years ago in 2005. I owned hundreds of lots all over Florida, different areas. The market crashed about November of '05. That's when it really crashed. We were in the business, so we knew. One particularly, I owned 125 lots that I owned cash. I didn't need the cash, but I knew I was going to because the market was crashing. So I got a hold of my agent. I said, when was the last property that we sold? And she said, well, it's been about a month. I said, what are they listed across the board at average right now? She told me right now, let me check. It looks like they're around 15,000, but nothing sold for about a month on the MLS. I said, okay, Mary, here's what I need you to do. I need you to take all my properties. I'm going to give you 50 properties right now. I think it was 50 I gave her. I said, put them up at 16,900, and I want you to sell them owner finance, 20% down, 10-year term, no credit check, owner financing. She says, oh, I don't know if they'll buy them. I said, trust me on this, they'll buy them. What happens is there's a lot of people out there, young and old, they haven't got a lot of cash. The economy's starting to tighten up, consumer confidence is dropping, but they still have that dream. They want to buy a piece of property, especially the locals. They've always wanted it, but they just can't afford that premium. They've been stimulated by seeing the prices go up. So all of a sudden they see my properties on the market. It's affordable. I'm asking 20% down. So you see, let's see, about $3,000 down, which is affordable. Most people can scrape up $3,000 if they borrow it from their relatives, family, or friends. So they come with $3,000 down, and they're gonna owe me $14,000. I pay my realtor her her commission and closing cost. I'm left with about a $12,000 mortgage owed to me. I want to say I sold those 50 properties. Now, I sold them in a market that was dead. The economy had crashed. We were going into a recession. Myself and my partner, we weren't selling any property. It was kind of a panic state of mind for everybody. But because I changed my strategy and I had that tool in my box, I was able to create $1.8 million over 10 years in payments if it had gone to term. Well, obviously, you know where the story's going. It didn't go to term. I had them properties. I collected approximately $11,000 in change, and I was going to be collecting that for 10 years. I ended up collecting about a year and a half. I needed some cash. I couldn't afford to hold them and just get my money over time. So I made some calls to some people I network with, and I ended up selling. I think I sold half of those mortgages to my accountant for $285,000 cash. I think it was about $900,000 in note value. So that particular scenario, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think I had on those 50 properties a little over $100,000 out. I sold those 50 properties and I recovered $3,000 a piece. So that's $150,000. I paid my commissions to my broker, paid all the closing costs. I want to say I walked away with about $100,000 in my pocket. and I created 1.8 million on those particular properties over 10 years. I was able to have the value in them, turn around and bail out the second time with my accountant, get another 285,000 from him. Those properties end up going bad on him. That's just another way to get creative. And if you don't, a lot of times if you hit a hiccup in the market, consumer confidence changes. As we discussed in the beginning, there's four stages to a real estate cycle. You got to really study the real estate cycle and know each one of those phases, because land's a little different than bricks and mortar, but it'll catch up with you if you don't do your homework and you're not a student of the business. So I just shared that with you just to show you that with creativity, a lot of times when it's cloudy, you can still see a little sunshine through the clouds if you don't panic, get creative, look at all your options, jack the price up because that stimulates them because it's owner finance. Those same properties that I sold at that time for, I want to say 16, I don't have the numbers in front of me. Within 2 years, they were back down to about $1,000. So those notes they pretty much went dead in the water. But because I acted fast and I moved inflated valued properties, there was always a buyer out there that was willing to buy them on paper, owner finance. And then what happens is as the economy recovers, we go into the recovery period after the recession, you go back in, you buy them again. Now you buy them back at cheaper than when I bought them. I bought them at $2,000. I think $2,200 was the top I paid for 125 lots. You go buy them at $500 to $1,000, and you build a group of people together, a bunch of cash if you haven't got it yourself. You buy them up. I think today's market, they're at about 7. So if you said there's 7 across the board, you can dump them pretty quick at 5 because you're the lowest guy in the park, and you could do it with owner finance and create $1 million again on the same properties that are almost 20,000 at the peak of the market. So that's all about learning that cycle, having a strategy, which I would call an exit strategy, because my partner, for instance, he was waiting for him to go to 20. He lived out of state. I was in Florida. I had my ear to the ground. I heard the scuttlebutt. I saw the loss of jobs. I knew what was happening, and I told him, and he's a smart investor, but because I was closer to the game, I told him, he thought the baby boomers were coming, it was going to hit 20,000. What happened was he ended up holding those 125 lots and never recovered any value. I took half of them, created 1.8 million, was able to live off it, pay off a lot of debt, and it was just another scenario of where if you get a little creative, think outside the box, don't panic, but ideally going into a deal, you want to have an exit strategy. Without the exit strategy, you can be dead in the water real quick, and you're no longer a real estate investor. You're a person that's panicking, selling everything they got just to pay your bills. So let that be a lesson to you guys, because that's one of my lessons that I'm going to share with you, and they're not all good lessons. Some of them are lessons that I learned the hard way, made mistakes, lost a bunch of money, and it's because I didn't have an exit strategy. And sometimes we all get in the investment business. We make a lot of money, we think we know everything. Sometimes you're in the market, and the market's so good, it's in a recovery stage, or wherever it may be. It may even be in the inflated stage. It may be going towards hyperinflation, and there's still deals. But if you know the cycle, you know what comes next. It's almost like throwing a ball up in the air. It gets to a point it stops going up, and then it starts coming down. And when it starts coming down, it gets to a point of terminal velocity. A lot of this last case, in the last crash, it went into a recession, almost into a depression. That was disastrous for a lot of people. We had a lot of people coming out of the woodwork buying property from us that we were selling at 10 and 15, that they were borrowing hard money to buy these properties. They didn't have their ear in the ground. They weren't listening to what people were saying on the street. They weren't watching the right numbers. They weren't talking to bankers, mortgage companies, because it was loud and clear for the people in the game. Sometimes people get their ego ahead of them, and they buy stuff because they want to be called an investor, and they want to be big shots. And what I call the 5th and 6th guys in, I bought it, some of them I bought for 2, sold them at 6. The guy that bought them at 6 sold them at 8. The guy bought them at 8, sold them at 12. The guy bought them at 12, sold them at 15. The guy bought them at 15, thought he was going to sell them at 20. Guess what happened? The ball hit maximum velocity, and the market stopped. Even owner financing, nobody wanted to buy the property anymore. So when that happens, Now you have a lot of property, you're going to incur a lot of taxes, and you're really in a bad situation. So you don't want to be in that situation. I reiterate that because guys, more than once, if you want to be a true student, then you got to study from the beginning to the end. Study it, study it, study it. All the years I've been studying, I've read the ink off of books. I've actually read some books 7 or 8 times only because my retention's a little bad. I don't really get it the first time. A lot of times these guys make it too complicated. What I've done is I've taken these courses, I've studied it, I've taken 30 years of experience, and I've bundled it up into a pretty simple formula and took out all the complication. I'm not going to make any of this complicated. It's simple if you pay attention, take notes, understand the cycle, understand every stage of it, understand you need to do your due diligence. You got to find value in the property. Once you determine the value, you do your due diligence, you come up with a solid exit strategy plan, then you send a contract out. If you get the property back, you've positioned yourself perfectly to make money. Otherwise, you're going to get caught with your pants down and you're no longer an investor. You're kind of a knucklehead. So I'm going to end with that. If you have any questions, feel free just to submit them. If you like the video, you like the audio, go ahead and hit the like button. I'd really appreciate if you guys share it with any of your friends. We'll probably have another video next week. I think we're going to be going into the subdividing land to sell, or even possibly buying in the right area. I'm not sure what we're going to do next, but it's going to be exciting. I'm trying to keep this thing in order for you guys chronologically, so that this way, if you get all the tapes together, you get it in audio. It'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you have to go back, you just review 3. If you're not sure, you go back and review 2. Most of the time, I'd recommend go back from 1 to wherever we end, 1 to wherever we end, until you get it second nature. By the time you're done, you get through the master series, you'll be well on your way. So take notes, be patient, be a great student. If you have any questions, please ask. I can go back. You can always go back and review what we've went over. I want every one of you guys to succeed tenfold. I found this is my passion. I dabble in the real estate business now, but I think my true value is taking people, like all these years I've told people, if I can do it, you can do it. The only difference was I had all the tools in my box. It took a lot of losses, a lot of sleepless nights. I cried a few nights because I thought I was just going to fail at this business. But one thing I learned is if you have the pillow over your head, opportunity's not going to come knocking to the door. So get up, dust off, go do it again. But hopefully you guys, you learn your lessons, you take your notes. I believe you guys will do just fine. There'll be no problems. Don't get greedy. Stay humble. Be a great student, and I'll see you next week. Thank you, guys. If you loved it, share. If you liked it, hit the like button. Please submit your emails if you haven't already. Be safe. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.